All right, thanks everyone. Before I get started, I just want to thank the PVI very quickly, the camaraderie, these wonderful talks, also a brand new Zoom recorder, which I was unable to purchase before this, which is great. I think that in retrospect, I think my title is a little too prescriptive to kind of what I'm actually going to do today. Today I plan on just presenting kind of my work, how I approach my work, and a survey of some recent research that I've conducted that's still ongoing. And at the very end, I'd like to just give you a couple of audible and audiovisual examples to kind of show you some things that I'm currently grappling with my own research. Recently, Charlottesville has become synonymous with terrorism and white supremacy due to the Unite the Right rally of August 2017. I think this is something we're all familiar with by now. My dissertation explores the sonic and affective dimensions of this event and its reverberations, ranging from the use of the Confederate rebel yell by the alt-right to frighten and intimidate city residents, to the widespread belief of locals in the uplifting and transformative potential of communal singing. In the months surrounding Unite the Right and up to the present, I have recognized that Charlottesville's local politics have significantly transformed. Issues of affordable housing, police practices, land development, gun ownership, and systemic racism are now frequent topics among residents and additionally proliferate through local media. Evidence of this evolution can be heard in the soundscape of Charlottesville City Council meetings. Once an anemic form of bureaucracy, these meetings have become spectacles featuring frequent disruptions by chants, boos, hisses, cackles, speeches, pop music, finger snaps, and other sonic markers of what I think is a reinvigorated citizenry. And let me just show you.
He is a white supremacist. He caused whatever happened on Elliott Avenue. He caused never
So this is March, I think, I forget the exact date, but Jason Kessler was at a recent city council meeting. And I also want to show you another unique moment. Whoops, oh, what the... Anyway, let me move on. Anyway, there was another great moment where Nikaya told everybody, you know, hey, think about whether or not your activism is worth this person's time, but think about whether you want to be noisy or not. And so then she allows Jason Kessler to proceed, and then all of a sudden members of the audience are like, and they start opening up their bags, and they start sneezing, and then he has to stop again. This audible form of activism coincides with citywide discussions centering on the appropriateness of this transforming soundscape. Some argue that civility is necessary for government to function, while others view audible disruptions as a strategy to balance power between citizens, perceived outsiders, and government representatives. In response to these collective developments, members of the City Council have struggled to either to maintain order or to adjust procedures to the ever-evolving civic soundscape. I approached the City Council meetings as an ethnomusicologist. The field of ethnomusicology, with its intrinsic connections to anthropology, has long sought to explore the ways in which human cultures create, rely upon, play with, and are affected by what we might call music. Recently, however, the field has also recognized that the notion of music itself can be a problematic and limiting one when used in scholarship. My advisor, Michelle Kislik, for example, has argued for ethnomusicologists to reorient their work as performance studies, because our scholarship, quote, emphasizes the breakdown of the odd boundaries between music and other aspects of enacted life. Building up to the present moment, the quote-unquote sonic turn in academia, also known as the development of sound studies, has resulted in texts by scholars from David Novak to Martin Daughtry, and those are a couple ethnomusicological examples. It's also in musicology, more theoretical, media studies, and whatnot, that are framed by notions of sound that allow for greater exploration into the wide world of the audible and even the theoretical and controversial pre-audible. My own work is situated in this turn. Like the ethnomusicologist Deborah Wong, I, quote, follow the trail of sound, noise, and silence, which makes powerfully audible the questions I find the most important. Such a framework is important for my work on the Charlottesville City Council meetings because of, among many other reasons, the inherent tensions underlying perceptions of the soundscape occupying the council chambers. Activists who might sing well-known pop tunes in the space, for example, can be understood by others as being noisy or making noises as opposed to the pop music. Such a discrepancy requires an analysis that already removes assumptions of what is and is not musical and noisy. My initial research has involved participant observation at dozens of hours of city council meetings, some of which have lasted longer than 7 hours. I have also combed through months of prior meetings to get a better sense of the audible history of these events. These investigations, as well as conversations with those who attend the meetings, have made apparent to me the fact that the soundscape of the Charlottesville City Council has become an area of contestation rooted in conceptions of what a proper democratic government should sound like. On the one hand, we have local residents like Jim Hingley, who argue that the recent meetings are evidence of quote-unquote intimidation by an angry mob, resulting in individuals becoming hesitant about addressing the city council out of fear that they might be heckled or shouted down. Some of my conversations with meeting participants confirm Hingley's belief. One person who planned on speaking to the council told me that she was concerned about how hostile the meetings have become. Quote, "You know, a lot has happened in this town, but there's a lot of anger in this room, and I just want us to be able to move forward," end quote. "You think the meetings have become too hostile?" I inquired for clarification. Quote, "Yes, I'll admit I'm a little nervous about speaking." Another individual, in her remarks to the City Council on January 2nd, 2018, stated, "I generally attend council meetings or I watch at home because I care deeply about this place that is my hometown, not just by birth, but also by choice. I have lived through many social changes in our city as we continue to confront racial, gender, socioeconomic, and even religious discrimination and prejudice. We are all striving to be a better and more equitable community. Still, I am alarmed by the abusive situations that often occur in this room. They are not healthy or conducive to effective governance." I have frequently heard individuals argue for a return to the less noisy and more orderly proceedings of past city council meetings. Such a return, folks like Hingley argue, would allow the city to function properly and give citizens equal access to their government about their issues and concerns. Conversely, a number of activists have argued in favor of the sounds that now frequently pervade the council chambers. UVA professor Jelaine Schmidt, for example, understands the noisiness of recent proceedings as an attempt to evade the violence caused by remaining silent. Quote, "I have no energy for this talk of civility. It masks a very uncivil situation that has persisted for centuries. You all are complaining about the fire alarm, and we're complaining about the smoke and flames that are engulfing us and have been for a long time," end quote. Others, such as a number of members of the local Democratic Socialists of America chapter, view their audible participation at the city council meetings, whether through heckling, chanting, singing, or coughing, as a form of direct democracy that is inhibited by regulations, especially those involving sound, as imposed by the city council. The presence of a timer, for example, a device that limits speeches by local residents to 3 minutes, is viewed by some as a particularly troublesome symbol of a city council that works to limit civic participation by city residents. What is clear is that recent meetings have become frequently disrupted by audible behavior, oftentimes purposefully so. The stakes, according to many, are high. Each act of sonic disruption, each act to temper noise, each act to bolster one vision or the other for the city council soundscape is an attempt to gain control of local politics. From my own perspective, I also recognize the profound influence of sound in similar ways. Sonic subterfuge, heckling, chanting, coughing, from local activists has demonstrated the capacity to unpredictably sway policy decisions. Decisions by councilors to either enforce or put aside rules of decorum are variously motivated by the emotions of apprehension, anxiety, despondency, and hope. The silence of an audience represents its cooperation and support just as frequently as it does their deep resentment of the speaker and or the issues being addressed. Precarious rumors in the local papers become emotionally arresting facts once uttered from the days. As a whole, the City Council soundscape evokes images of a tense sonic battle between citizens and government officials, each attempting to move the city toward their conception of a positive direction. Today, I would like to share with you two recent moments from the City Council meetings to show you challenges and possibilities I'm currently facing at this stage of my research. As many of you are aware, Nikia Walker was elected to the City Council in November of last year and recently was appointed by her colleagues to become the mayor of Charlottesville. My advisor and I thought that her presence at the head of the council would quote-unquote calm the soundscape of the council chambers. We made this assumption because Walker is a local noted activist, a noted local activist, and often found common cause with those who were audibly disrupting the meetings. This calming did occur, as heard at the March 5th, 2018 meeting. Jason Kessler, the organizer of the Unite the Right rally, was scheduled to address the City Council that evening. Usually his appearances at these meetings can cause a great deal of shouting and chanting from local activists. But at this meeting, the mayor encouraged members of the audience to stifle their noisy disruptions, a call that was eventually heeded by all present. This was not only a noteworthy development in that earlier requests for silence by the City Council prior to Walker's leadership were largely ignored, and in fact actually kind of would create even more noisy disruptions, but also because it led to a moment of sincere appreciation between activists and government officials, something that almost never occurs during these City Council meetings. There's a lot of tension between activists and yeah. So let me make sure I get.
Because whatever happened on Elliott Avenue, she calls Kevin Hart.
You're letting the clock run while I'm asking you to talk so that I can.
So what had happened at this point was Jason Kessler was repeatedly being interrupted, and he just kept on asking for his time back. And at one point, Nikia was just like, "No, they're being quiet. You don't get your time back." He didn't like that, and so the timer eventually ran out. We erupt into some singing. Eventually, Nikia motions to the police to have him removed. And in a moment, so one of the most contentious relationships is that of local activists and the former mayor of the city, Mike Signer. There's a lot of some might even call it hatred, but Mike Signer played an instrumental role in removing Jason Kessler from the room, and you'll hear sincere appreciation from local activists for that role that he played.
Yeah, thank you,
That was me. So you could hear a little bit of me participating as well. But this is part of my engagement with these meetings, is that I'm not only a researcher, but I'm also someone deeply concerned with what's going on in town. And a lot of these meetings, there's so much hostility that's taking place, and it's so refreshing when you hear activists saying, "Mike Signer," like that was great. I couldn't ever have imagined that a couple of months ago. The April 2nd meeting, 2018 meeting, however, went in a different direction and led to Walker's chastising of local activists, including an explanation that noisy behavior will not lead to positive social change. I want to share with you some audio from the meeting, first where the meeting becomes rather chaotic, leading to the removal of the audience from the council chambers. The second clip is of Walker addressing the activists in the room. I think I have to actually... These are huge files, so I need to make sure I get the right one. So this was about 40 minutes into the city council meeting. Everybody's out of their seats. People are being confrontational. There's the threat of violence that might take place. So I have from my own personal perspective, doing all this research, we had just had this very positive moment that had occurred at the previous meeting where the activists and the city councilors were actually kind of on the same page a little bit. So I had a lot of hope for what was developing in the council chambers. And then the very next meeting, this took place. The people had to be removed from the chambers, which a lot of people did not like because someone had just threatened violence against people, and now they were being crammed into a hallway with these people. And so when we all were brought back in, the mayor decided to chastise, she chastised the local activists, which for me was a very interesting moment. Oh, please. Okay. So before I move any further, let me put this back up, and then I'll start concluding. Oh.
Do you want to open the whole thing?
Yeah, it's hard to see from an angle. How do I?
Go down to the bottom. Yeah.
Thank you. So this was interesting for me in a number of ways because, one, there was this perceived alliance between activists and their mayor, and then for the mayor to come in and basically tell the activists that I completely disagree with your tactics, that was an interesting moment for me. Also because later on, one of the activists came up to the dais and basically chastised the mayor, and there was a lot of racial tension in that moment because here's the mayor who's lived in Charlottesville her entire life. She's been an activist. She's a black woman. And here's a young white activist basically telling the mayor that you're not doing a good job. We've been on your side this entire time, and now we are no longer, and basically lecturing the mayor as to how she's supposed to do her job, which was even more compounded by the fact that the Mike Signer was also directing the mayor how to handle the proceedings, and people were calling him out for doing that. So there was that whole issue taking place as well. With these two meetings in mind, I will begin to conclude my remarks. The research I've been conducting about these meetings has been emotionally stimulating. I frequently engage, albeit to a minor degree, in the same sonic activism by local residents. Conversely, I also have felt anxiety and disappointment at the noisy behavior by some of these individuals, including some of my own outbursts. I'll shout something out and then afterwards I'm like, why the hell did I say that? It is difficult for me to dissociate myself from my research and my increasing concern with city politics, and I think that that's something that we all feel in this PVI collective, is that a lot of our research is rooted in social justice, but we're also trying to find a way to make sure that we're approaching our research in a clear-eyed way, while also providing positive social change through our research. Like most who are present in the council chambers, councilors, activists, and citizens alike, I am searching for the most positive path for Charlottesville to steer out of the pain and suffering caused by the Unite the Right rally, in addition to the city's lengthier and just as equally troubling history, such as the destruction of Vinegar Hill, which I think we're all very well aware of. It just so happens that my search is occurring within the framework of dissertation research, and that's one of the big issues that I'm grappling with. I did not The one more paragraph. I did not expect to get involved in Charlottesville politics that radically changed after the election of Trump, and especially after Unite the Right. And I found this is a similar story for many who now frequent these city council meetings. There is additionally an empowering and cathartic feeling that comes from participating at these meetings and seeing your actions have a direct effect on city policies. With national politics the way they are, there's a lot to be unhopeful about in America. I instead find my hope in Charlottesville. My dissertation is being shaped by what is taking place in the city. It is at once guided by research findings as well as the demands of local residents. I now understand that my project is part of a larger citywide effort to reconcile with Unite the Right, with Charlottesville's history, and more personally, with my own ability to shape society toward a vision of social justice, even if it is in a small way. Thanks.